Hello students, in English we will study subunit 3.3 The Road Not Taken, a poem written by Robert Frost. About the poet. Robert Lee Frost, born March 26, 1874, San Francisco, California, United States, died January 29, 1963, Boston, Massachusetts. American poet who was much admired for his depictions of the rural life of New England, his command of American colloquial speech, and his realistic verse portraying ordinary people in everyday situations. He is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. His famous poems include Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Fire and Ice, Acquainted with the Night, and many more. Summary of the poem. While walking in the woods, the speaker arrives at a fork in the road. The speaker evaluates the two paths. While one initially appears less popular, they are really about the same. He chooses the second, telling himself that he will take the other another day. Yet he knows it is unlikely that he will have the opportunity to do so. One day, the speaker imagines, with a twinge of irony, he will declare that he chose the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, despite his understanding that the two roads are identical. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveller long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. Explanation. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. The poet, while travelling on foot in the woods, that is forest, reaches a junction where two roads diverge, meaning separated and going in different directions. Immediately he realizes that as a traveller travelling both the roads is impossible. Here two roads are meant as two ways of life. The woods are yellow, which means that it probably is the autumn season and the leaves are turning yellow. And be one traveller long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. As it is impossible to travel both the roads, the poet stands there trying to choose which path he is going to take. However, the poet wants to go down both paths and is thinking about it hard. He is staring down one road, trying to see where it goes. The small plants and greenery of the woods block his view. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. The phrase as just as it is fair could mean proper or righteous and equal, but this doesn't quite apply to a road. As just as fair is an example of a simile, then the poet decided to check the other path because he found the other road to be less travelled and grassy one. Wanted wear is an example of personification and alliteration. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. After travelling through the road, he found that both the roads are equally travelled. First he found the first road to be the more travelled one, but then he says that both the roads are equally travelled. The as for that refers to the path being less worn. Though as for that, the passing there is an example of alliteration. The third and fourth stanza of the poem. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way. I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Explanation. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Here again the poet found both the paths looking same. Perhaps he goes in the flashback. It was tough for him to recognize the real road, as in the morning he was the first person to walk on the road. And both the morning equally lay in leaves is an example of inversion, and both lay equally that morning in leaves is the correct order in prose. He couldn't decide the right path, as no step, that is, no person, had trodden, that is, trampled or crushed the leaves on the roads to allow him to go for the right one. These lines are an example of imagery. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. The poet here saves the first road for another day. He knows how one way leads to another and then another until you end up very far from where you started. He doesn't think he will ever be able to come back and take the other path as much as he wishes he could. I shall be telling this with a sigh. This line is an example of the poet's failure in choosing the right path. The word sigh reflects that he is disappointed with the decision. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by. He accepts the fact that he is a failure in taking the right decision. Here, ages and ages means in the future or coming years. It is an example of alliteration and repetition. Perhaps he chose the less travelled one. And that has made all the difference. The poet took the path that no one else did, and that is what has made the difference in his life, that made him successful. However, a difference could mean success or utter failure. Message of the poem. The message of Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, is to be true to yourself when faced with a difficult decision, although some regrets will be inevitable. The poem has a rhyme scheme of A-B, A-A-B. The poet in the poem decided to seize the day and express himself as an individual by choosing the road that was less travelled by. Moreover, the narrator's decision to choose the less travelled path shows his courage in terms of the beauty. Both paths are equally fair. English workshop. Read the poem again. Does it have a uniform rhyme scheme throughout? Write down the rhyme scheme of every stanza separately. Answer: the first, second, third and fourth. That is, all the stanzas have the rhyme scheme A-B, A-A-B. Question 2. Write the symbols that are used in the poem to represent the following ideas. Subdivision A. Choice of two options. Two roads diverged. B. I made a rare choice. I took the one less travelled by. C. Equally good options. It means just as fair. D. It was tempting and needed to be tried. It was grassy and wanted wear. E. Some other time, which means another day. Question 3. Rearrange the following facts in the proper order and fill in the flow chart. First is subdivision D. The traveller came to a fork in the road. Second is C. He observed one as far as he could. Third, A. He chooses the one barely travelled. 4. E. He planned to travel along the previous one some other time. And 5. B. Choosing the lesser used road has made a great difference.